More than three-quarters of U.S. adults say that news organizations are biased when presenting news on social and political issues, according to a new survey. The survey from the Pew Research Center released Tuesday found that 77% of surveyed Americans believe that media organizations are biased. This is a slight decrease from early 2020, when 79% of respondents said the same thing, marking the highest percentage since Pew began asking the question nearly 40 years ago. Meanwhile, just 22% of Americans in their most recent survey said the media fairly deals with all sides. The perception of media bias varied by party. As Republicans continue their trend of being more likely to believe news coverage favors one side, nearly 9 in 10 Republicans said news coverage favors one side, compared to 67% of Democrats. The survey also revealed that nearly three-fourths of Americans believe that media criticisms keeps political leaders from doing things that shouldn't be done, compared to 24% who said it hinders politicians from doing their jobs. These responses also vary based on political affiliation, with 81% of Democratic-leaning independents saying media criticism helps keep political leaders in check, compared to 67% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents. The latter figure, however, is a stark increase from the beginning of President-elect Trump's first term, when roughly 50% of Republicans said the same thing. The Pew Research Center conducted the survey from September 16th to 22nd among 9,680 U.S. adults. The margin of error is 1.3 percentage points. Am I surprised that most of us think the media is biased? Not really. That's one of the reasons why independent media is gaining traction, or has been gaining traction. It's one of the reasons why people will, in a lot of cases, rather go and watch people talk about the news on a site like YouTube versus CNN or Fox or MSNBC. It's a lot easier to trust someone when they're not worried about advertisers and any other influences that might be hidden or behind the scenes. The part that I'm a little irritated with is that I wish more people could figure out that bias is not directed towards one party or the other. It's based around the establishment. So you saw more criticisms of Trump for mean tweets, right, and calling McCain a war hero because he was captured, versus the giant tax cut that he signed back in 2017. There is always a favoritism shown towards politicians that toe the line, that speak with decorum and whatnot. Now, of course, if someone like Bernie goes on CNN or Fox or whatever, they're going to treat him more hostile because they're against his positions, due to the fact that they're varied from the most other politicians. What's interesting is that you have a majority of members of both parties who do believe that the media has a place in society. I mean, even if you're like the biggest critic or just person who despises any of the establishment programs, you're not going to sit there and go, "Oh yeah, this president or this senator or this governor or this congressman, yeah, they shouldn't have anyone trying to critique them, you know, based off of what they're doing. Yeah, we should just have politicians with no coverage whatsoever, or criticisms directed at them from pundits and other people that follow this stuff regularly." Yeah, I'm glad to see that at least a majority of us don't have not gone that far in our condemnation of the media. For me, it's just kind of sad that we don't have, like, I guess my biggest problem with these networks is not necessarily that they're biased, right? Like, I get that they're gonna be against progressives, be against people who speak in a certain style, like they do with Trump. My issue is that there are so many important stories that happen, sometimes day after day, week after week, and there's like no coverage given to them at all. Like we were talking about when I did my video on the fact that most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, or can't afford $1,000 emergency. That's the kind of stuff that should be played on television every single day. About, like, all these networks should have some kind of housing crisis special, or they could call it the poverty program, where they just talk about people that are not making it in our so in the richest country in the world. The fact that most people who live here are poor, they don't give a damn to talk about it. They want to sit there and mention, oh, Biden pardoned his son, or look at what's happening in Ukraine. It's like, man, look at all the issues afflicting Americans all across the country. It's not even just local news, and you won't see any of the stuff that's truly bothering people getting mentioned at all. Just complete radio silence. It is lying by omission. If you turned on like just an average day of Fox or CNN, or again, any of the other ones, you would think that everything was just fine. Like, the most important thing going on right now in the U.S. is that Trump picked whoever as his secretary of whichever prospective office. Like, it's really disgusting that there aren't more stories about the suffering of the people, the hardships of Americans. And the media in that regard is very anti-working class. They are just opposed to mentioning any labor stories. The closest we can get coverage for is when there's like a strike, like a major one, like the UAW one, or Amazon workers. Just sometimes that'll get talked about for a little bit, but for the most part, this stuff doesn't get mentioned, and it's a real damn shame, because there are a lot of people that they just forget about. They don't talk about, and for that reason, many Americans who don't just look this stuff up independently, or who may, because there are some people who are so pig-headed that they'll go, oh, well, I don't believe what I see on YouTube, even if you have a citation and a news article from this source. They truly believe everything that's not on TV is fake news, like just complete, just brain in their behind, that those type of people. It's really sad, because the more people that talk about something, the more likely it is to get spread around. And when people know more about it, they're more likely to think about it, discuss it, and there's a higher chance of the issue getting solved, even if it's in some indirect way by people just knowing it happened. So it's sad.